Inquisitor, we have a new one this month. This one is accused for working with an elder demon. This is a very serious crime, worshipping a demon and having its mark upon you. What have you got to say in your defence? Yeah, I found it better than Dragon Age 2, except calling it Dragon Age Inquisition, oh fuck it, I'm just going to call it Dragon Age 3. Thanks BioWare for naming this game something that I can't properly pronounce, although if you're a fan of the first game, you may be massively disappointed with this title where it seems to be taking a step away from that dark fantasy lore that Origins had. Dragon Age 3 is a third entry to the franchise. What mainly takes place in Orlais and Ferelden. It's an RPG that was released back in 2014. You can still import your world state from the last two games, yet here, where this was a cross-gen title, importing your world state would have been a bit tricky. So they made this Dragon Age Keep so you can make up your own world state and import it to this game, which I thought was a really good idea for the newcomers to the series. Or if you just wanted a bit of a world change from your previous playthrough to add to the replayability. For the campaign, in short, a breach has opened up in the sky after an explosion at a sacred site where the peace talks were about to begin between the mages and the Templars, and your character was at the temple at the time of the explosion and lost their memory of what happened at this temple, and all you know is that you've got this mark on your hand that can close fade rifts, and now the world is in turmoil. And it's up to you to pull it all back together again and stop Corypheus from conquering the land of Phadus with his demon army. You can pick your race, human, elf, dwarf, and even the new one, Canary, which is a plus in my books. And as tradition in Dragon Age game, you can pick between rogue, warrior and mage in this card-based system that goes together what explains what you are picking. Then it goes straight to the character customization, what's well done with the tools that it gives you. It's like they went full out on it here and like, oh shit, we forgot about the hairstyle, where they seem very few in choice. Besides that, I found it quite good character customization. I was really impressed the way that you can combine the irises. It's something that I've never seen before this game was dated. The controls are generally easy to get used to in how combat works with its tutorial system, what teaches you within good pacing and don't overwhelm the player all at once. In DA3 they try going in the middle ground of combat, of action orientated like in DA2, and old school tactical base as in DA Origins, and on a lower difficulty this combat is fun and it does work, and very friendly for newcomers to the franchise. But on the harder setting, the tactical menu is a lifesaver, especially where I had to think on what I was doing and switching between each characters and giving them commands, and there's no going on autopilot here, and this is when you will use the tactical menu the most on the harder settings. The battles are just so much more satisfying where I had to think on what I was doing. Fuck it! We didn't even start the game. As for the characters' tactics, you can switch in and out of what you want them to do. It has been very simplified for newcomers to the series, but I did prefer it in Origins where I could do a lot more with it. However, if you're playing it more like action and giving simple commands, it does work and it gets very intense at times, mainly on the boss fight. You can also close fade rifts with the mark on your hand, what is quite awesome the first few times that you do it. There are different level enemies what you will encounter in your journey, and some of them will be more higher level than you and will kick your ass in a second. What can make for some interesting battles. I did not mind this, it was simple, come back later when you're a high enough level. Unfortunately it happens rarely, and the general enemies that you encounter after a while, you can fight these with your eyes closed. They become predictable and very rarely I had to put any thought into defeating them. Yet these are the enemies outside the main missions. It's like they said, right, we put a blob of enemies here, here and here on the map, and I felt like this was at each hub world and the fights were just uninspiring. The only time when I felt that rush was when I was fighting a dragon. Oh, the dragon boss fights is something that this game does very well. They are so much fun. They had their own tactics of fighting. One may be electric while the other one would be a fire dragon, and then the next will be an ice dragon, and as you advance throughout the dragons they get more powerful and start putting armour on themselves. It always had me engaged with these fights by how awesome it was. I like the redesign of the dragons, they just look much more better than the predecessor games by far. They just feel much more of a threat here and they just feel more alive. And I just enjoyed all 10 battles of the dragon boss fight. I thought the main missions were well thought out, like the choice between the mages or the Templar mission because it had consequences of which one you would choose and how Corypheus and his general is introduced. It's brilliant.
That, the Elder One. That, the Elder One.
You know instantly that this was the villain of the game and it was set up perfectly. Then later on in a ballroom you're dancing, playing the politics game, finding secrets. These missions had so much content in them. The dialogue wheel makes a return and it's a bit more fleshed out than DA2. You roughly know what you're getting this time around and you can still shape your character's personality. There are meaningful decisions to make and the dialogue changes to a different type of wheel saying that this is a major decision. The problem is a lot of it falls into illusion of choice. For example, the Mages and Templar choice has consequences of what plays out throughout the whole game. I thought that was nicely done and I thought the whole game was going to be more like that. And then later on, who do you want on the throne of Orlais? To me, this decision seems to not come back round on whoever you pick. To me, that was a bit of a letdown and most of these meaningful choices fall into that category of illusion of choice. However, I've got to give credit when credit's due. There are multiple outcomes to this mission. There was either one that I wasn't aware of, is the complete peace between these three characters. It's just that once when I passed this mission, it did not influence the rest of the game until I got to the very end, where it gives you this border slideshow thing of all your outcomes. I like seeing the different cultures of Orlais and their masks. Definitely love the masks. And for Eldon, it was nicely done and enriched by it. The trouble is you only get a handful of these good missions. And the final mission itself, where you fight Corypheus, seems rushed. I had more of a better time fighting him in DA2's DLC than here. Now for the major downside of DA3, there are so many fillers and fetch quests in it. It's like they said, you like DA2's fetch quests? We're going to go to the extreme here!
Let's take a look.
And as much as the Hinterlands looks beautiful with its lush green, it has to be the worst one for these fetch quests. You can spend well over 10 hours doing nothing but these uninspired quests. Like close favourites, find campsites, or get a farmer his buffalo back, or collecting these shards. And for fuck's sake, I hate this Inquisition soldier because all they say, I've got a requisition quest for you, sir. It's like, no, I don't want to find any more minerals.
This might interest you, sir.
What is it?
See for yourself, sir. Word for you.
What is it?
This may be worthwhile.
And they don't seem to stop. When you've done one, they say, I've got a request for you. Oh, I just run away from this soldier every time when I had to go back to camp. And yeah, it is optional to do these quests. However, if you want to gain level to be the right level for the main missions, you have to do these boring ass missions. And they rarely get better than that in the other hub worlds included. I thought these join the dot puzzles were a bit of a laugh. Find 3 of them, join the dots, and when it's done, it gives you good loot. Except it's not something that I'm going to keep on going back to after the first hub world, where most of the time I had better gear equipped than what it was giving me. And they got these dot games on each hub world. It's just a nice distraction, I found it. There are moments that made me laugh, was when you were being a judge and your advisor said that this man's being charged of throwing a goat at the castle wall, and your character's like, okay. And there are times when the game does get serious and you got to be the Inquisitor. Think of the right punishment for them. Okay, the game had me in hysterics when I was judging a box.
First, this wasn't my idea. It is an issue born of titles and heir apparency and... Halam Shiral is having difficulty freeing trade routes formerly controlled by Duchess Florian. Had she been tried, her assets would be forfeit and considerable bureaucracy avoided. So they ask that we judge her.
Are you serious? I did my part. She's dead.
That was the time allotted for rebuttal. Her crimes negated any claim to... Forgive me, there is an odor.
I call for rehabilitation. The skull shall do public theater about the evils of evil. I also judge the box. End table for orphans.
That's quite enough, Inquisitor. Point taken.
I found the levelling up system has been dumbed down even more since Dragon Age 2. You no longer get attribute points anymore. That's done automatically now. And I don't like the way that it's locked me down on a way that I can choose to play it. You still get perk points to put into your skill of choice, and I found it simple to use and very user friendly of knowing what I was getting. But if you like blood magic in the past 2 games, it's not here. However, the Knight in Charter skill tree kicks ass, and that was easily my favourite one. The inventory system is easy to navigate and better than DA's 2, where you can change your character's companion's armour and craft them too, with the weapons also thrown into the mix and enchanting them alongside tilting them. I thought that this crafting system is easy to use and know what exactly I was getting. You can easily craft something a lot better than what you can find. And I like that it was in depth like this, and for that I never thought that this was to the point where I would say fuck it. Dragon Age 3 level designs are these hub worlds that are massive in size that you can unlock through purchasing them through Inquisition points. Each hub world is well detailed. There are views that you just can't stop to admire, especially with the Frostbite engine in play here. It just looks stunning on each one of the hub worlds that I went and ventured in. You got a command base for your Inquisition, what's called Skyhold, and you can customise Skyhold within certain limits, like a different throne, banner, and I like that as time went on, Skyhold was getting fixed up, and you can purchase upgrades by finding certain crafting supplies. There are Inquisition perks what gives you an extra skill like carrying more items or get more XP. The problem that I had with this was that it capped you off at 20, and for that it was a bit of a letdown where I just wanted all the perks. You got a war table where you can dispatch your Inquisition soldiers and they work in real time before you get the information back. It just adds that little something on top of the game where you can learn more about the lore. You can acquire agents for the Inquisition by doing their side missions. They don't seem to add much apart from a power point to your Inquisition forces. What you can spend to unlock more hub wells and main missions, the Inquisition points you can also earn by doing other side activities, like collect resources, close favourites or clear out campsites, or doing of the many side missions what you will find. However, by the end I had near enough 300 points, so there's no shortage in earning points. You do get mounts to use. Still, I didn't really use the mounts where they just didn't seem faster than running. I think the only time when I used the mount was in the desert with the horse with no name. Stop fucking with the script. Another downside is the long loading screens, to the point that you have 2 sets of loading screens, one after the other. The first one's got these cards that can make for an interesting read, or you can do what I did, was keep tapping the left bumper and right bumper with the rhythm of the music. And the other is just a black screen with the logo in the corner. For the characters, they are well done, and this is where the game shines to me the most. Each one seems to have their own personality. What makes them unique to the other? Mainly this only counts to the companions and the main characters that you have in your Inquisition. There's Sarah, the one who don't take anything too serious and always joking around. And then there's Cole, who's a spirit from the Fade, and all I can think of is what's with the hat? It never comes up in the dialogue wheel. And Varric makes a return from DA2, and then there's Solus, who seems to be more knowledgeable than what he lets on, and then we got Cassandra, who's an authority figure, and Blackwall, the Grey Warden. Then we got Ironball, the Canary, Vivian from All A, Dorian from Tavinta, Lydiana and Cullen makes a return, but they're not in your group, what you can take out on missions. They're more like your lieutenants in the Inquisition, alongside Josephine the Diplomat. And Morrigan makes a return also to advise the Inquisition. Your companions still have their own missions, and they can be alright missions at times, like Sarah's mission, Iron Ball's one. Just that most of them feel like fetch quests, like find Blackwall's Grey Warden papers, or Vivian's Wivenheart. Fuck's sake, boring. You get 1 or 3 good missions, it just makes a bit of a mismatch here. There are characters like and dislike, what keeps on coming up, but there's no way to tell if you're on their good side or bad side, and I never felt like that I was in danger of losing them. The romance options make a return, some of them are funnier than the others, naming Iron Ball's one. Now on to Cretheus, the villain of the game. He starts off quite strong, a blighted creature, one of the original magistrates. The thing is, as you progress throughout the story, he seems to get uninteresting. Nevertheless, I've got to say that Flemeth makes a return, and I'm still intrigued by her character as her story unfolds a bit here, and for me, I feel like that Flemeth has become the main face of the Dragon Age games. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's actually the main protagonist of the Dragon Age games, or maybe I'm just thinking too much into it. And yeah, I still want Flemeth as a romance option. She's definitely got it going on, especially with that crazy hairstyle of hers. Maybe next game. The cutscenes are locked at 30 frames, and I found this a bit jarring where I was playing at 60 frames, then it switches to the 30 frames, and it really does stick out when the cutscenes are on. I don't see why this was locked on the PC version. It can really snap you out of the immersion of the game. Besides that, they do have some really cool cutscenes where I was like, wow, that's fucking awesome. I thought the voice acting is nicely done on most of the characters. It never snapped me out of the immersion of it. The graphics are well done and looks gorgeous in some of the stages and have improved a lot since DA2. Even though this game came out in 2014, it still looks good. The soundtrack's not that bad, yet there's really only one theme that I can remember is the Inquisition theme, what got me in the rhythm to play the game. For how long the game is, I clocked on around about 60 hours or so, and that was doing most of the side activities. Yeah, if you just do some of the side activities for the points to unlock for the main missions, I can see it done in half that. The problem is, what I had with Dragon Age 3 is that the side activities are a bore. They become very repetitive, very fast. But the main missions of the game are well thought out, and I enjoyed playing each one of the main missions. So I guess that you've got to take the good with the bad. So have you played Dragon Age 3? What do you think of it? Leave it in the comments below. Until next game, I'm fucking off. Oh wait, I forgot about the DLC. After playing this DLC, I've got to say that it does take a bit of time to get going. You can play Jaws of Harkin during or after the end game. This DLC story is focused towards the last Inquisitor and the mystery of what happened to him 800 years ago. There are two tribes. You might as well say that this is a good tribe, what will interact with you. And the other one, you might as well say, this is the bad tribe, what is trying to kill you. And are fanatics of the group worshipping an god dragon spirit thing? It sounds very familiar to Flemeth to me. This DLC adds a new hub world with its lush green, and I like the tree camps where I could see far off into the distance, and it is advised for level 20 and higher players. There's not really any decisions apart from craft your character's response. Most of it felt like I was just following the next point of the story. There are a lot of fetch quests what makes a return, and for the most of it, this did feel like the general hub worlds that I visited before, and I kind of went on autopilot, where I was pretty much bored throughout 70% of this DLC, where it seems like I was doing the same thing as I did before in the other hub worlds. However, that 30% of the DLC is awesome! When you storm in the jaws of Harkin's camp, that's when it did pick up to 5th gear to me, especially when you find out what happened to the last Inquisitor. Yet if you like finding and reading these little story notes, there is a lot of content here what can hold you over for hours. You get a new Inquisitor ability what acts like a shield towards projectile weaponry, what can be useful, although where I was playing as a mage, I can cast a shield on my companions at any time. It just made it a bit redundant for me. I think that the warrior and rogue class will get the most out of this. Oh, if you like loot, there is a ton of items that you can acquire here. And you also get to judge a bear, and for that I think that this DLC is worth playing just for that on its own.
I hear you judge wrongs among your people, Inquisitor. If you are willing, I ask you to judge Storvacker.
I'm sorry.
As a warrior of our hold, Storvacker should have died rather than submit to the vile ritual the Jaws of Hakon had prepared. It is unclear whether the Augur or I should judge such a thing. You are here. I would be grateful.
Very well. I wouldn't want life in the hold to become unbearable.
Storvacker, will you speak to the hold for your deeds?
I assume she gets choice scraps now and then? Storvacker, no treats for a week.
Yes. Fulna should not have snuck her honey cakes. Perhaps she will fight better with less fat on her.
There's an old game that makes a return in the Jaws of Harkin DLC. I mean a really old game that predates this game. It's lights out. I never thought that I would be playing this in a Dragon Age game. Did anyone else make that connection, or was it just me? For how long the DLC is, I clocked on around about 7 hours, and that was including a lot of side missions that I've done. In all, I like this DLC, mainly towards the ending of it. That's when I felt like it went into 5th gear and how the story unravelled. However, I don't see myself returning to it anytime soon. And now that brings me to the Descent DLC. I'm going to be upfront here, this DLC is not for everyone. If you hated the deep roads in the past games, you might not get along with this one. This DLC has your Inquisitor investigate unusual earthquakes with the Dwarves of Orzammar to find out what's causing them and to put an end to it. You get to meet 2 new dwarf characters whose names are... I can't really remember, and I thought the characters were completely forgettable. It would have been nice if I could have Scout Harding as a companion in this DLC than these 2. The level design is pretty much follow the path that's laid out before you, exploring the deep roads and so on, but if you're after that massive exploration, it's not in this, it's a lot more linear DLC. And you get this map what acts like the one in the main game, where you can send your forces and build paths and so on. You can also start this DLC during or after the main game. There's no loot included in this DLC if you're into finding new gear. You fight Darkspawn, and I'm digging the ogre's new look. They look much more better and intimidating now. But I still don't like the look of the ordinary Darkspawn. They still look like fucked up lizards compared to Origins. They just look much more horrifying in the first game. I like that there was challenging fights and new enemies where I had to think of what I was doing, and I thought the design of these aluminum enemies that I've encountered were well made, and you do fight a Triceratops. It had me then. There are brilliant sights to see in this DLC where I had to stop and Google it. It just looked beautiful. I like that this DLC does explain why the dwarves think that they're going to fall up into the sky. I can see where they get that from now, and for that I thank BioWare for clearing that up. That always had me a bit puzzled. There's one thing that I disliked about this DLC. They do 180 degrees with this character at the end. In short, the character being curious about the past and the Titans and being a historian. And at the end, I mean the very end, they do a 180 with a character's personality. She starts speaking this weird spirit code bullshit. It's the best way that I can describe it, and being really annoying. Yet she could have a concussion by getting hit by raw lyrium, or maybe it's just being high from it. I've got to say there were some nice soundtracks, what I did like, and I thought they were quite catchy. I clocked on 4 hours or so, and I could see it lasting about 5. So, in all, I think it's a bit of disappointment in length. Again, I don't see myself going back to this once when I played it through. This was fun, but once when I know the outcome of it, this DLC, there's no replay value for me here. I can't change things up, however, I do think that it's worth that one-time playthrough, especially if you're a fan of the Deep Roads. And now that brings me to the Trespass DLC. This has got to be my favourite DLC, where it seems to be well written with the plot that's going on. Trespass DLC takes place 2 years after the main game, when the Inquisition has become a major power, and now there's a bit of pressure from the two states of what the Inquisition's going to be with this politics game, what's going on between Ferelden and Orlais. Then things start to get a bit weird with a dead canary what turns up out of nowhere. Then as you investigate, you see the Illuvians are now active. What the fuck? Oh, worth it. And then you stumble upon a Canary invasion, and I've got to say that this is awesome as it sounds. Each character get their own unique cutscene send-off, like Josephine with the Inquisitor watching this show with fireworks, and to Varric giving you a key to Kirkwall. It's the little things that make this DLC worth it. I felt that this DLC was more focused than the other DLC that I played. I never got bored, and the boring ass side missions seem to have vanished. And I had to use the tactical menu more than once where the fights were challenging. I think that I used the tactical menu here more times than I did in the actual game. There's a lot of codec entries what go more into the lore. The thing is, there are way too many of them, and you can spend a lot of time reading these and getting lost in it. It's just that I would like to have seen it than to read it, but that's my preference. I like that one of my decisions that I made in the main game came back round. It was drinking from the Well of Sorrows, so I've got a free pass through these ruins.
I think I know what to say. Milana de Thaverin. Rivas, Ver Anaris.
Amen Athanas.
Right. That wasn't weird. No one knows anything.
It was part of a ritual. A secret greeting from those Fen'Harel trusted.
The level design is pretty much follow the path that's laid out before you, and some of the environments look interesting and beautiful, and it shows, especially learning about Fen'Harel with the mules that you see, and the next minute you're in a library where you're not entirely sure if you're up or down. It made the environments outstanding. For along the DLC is, I clocked on around about 6 hour mark, so I thought that it was an alright length. I like that this DLC had the perfect way to say goodbye to these characters, and I enjoyed playing this DLC from start to finish. Now we get on to the multiplayer. Nope. Yeah, that's what I really want to do in a Dragon Age game, is constantly find minerals.